How's it going?
Good.
Welcome everyone to Invisible Resonance, where we'll be talking about all things weird, all things that we find weird, interesting, mysterious, or mysteries of all sorts, shapes, sizes, from paranormal to UFOs to unsolved murders to anything we find weird. Shrunken heads, little mummies, little mermaids. We don't care.
I thought this was just about bitching about who blocked us on Twitter.
That too. That too.
Okay.
That's especially important.
We got to get some of that in at least.
Yeah, at least a little bit. So this is my co-host, Nick Coffin Callis.
What's
from the
up?
Invisible Night School.
This is my co-host, Matt Riot. He's just a dude.
I'm just a dude. A dude that smokes.
What's up, Luda?
So yeah, this is gonna be episode 1. We're kind of just feeling it out and seeing through like how it's gonna work. Talk through some of what we're gonna be talking about over the next season. As well as delving into some of the topics that are currently relevant in today's modern ufology, paranormal topics et al.
Yep.
So I don't know what you want to start with, Nick, but
do you want me
to start with your?
Do you want me to kick it off with a really spooky story?
I love a spooky story.
Okay, I'm going to tell you about the Walleton gnome encounter of 1979.
Please do.
Okay, so in Nottingham, in 1979, September 23rd, it was about, I think, 8 p.m., so dusk time.
Mm-hmm.
The count isn't accurate, but 6 to 8 school children, they're, say, primary school, so grade school. They're farting around town. They're about a mile away from their house. They all meet up. They go and like check out a school, and they're walking around town, and they come upon Walton Park. Now, you've probably seen the manor that sits in the middle of it. It's used as the exterior shots of Wayne Manor in The Dark Knight Rises, the Nolan Batman movie. So you know that.
Yeah.
500 acres surround it, though, and it's a big park. Keep in mind this park was closed at the time, but they're darting around it, and there's fenced off little areas like wetlands and conservation areas, and one of them they call the swamp, so they clearly go there pretty often. So they're going over there. They know of a hole in the fence, and the 4 oldest of the kids, I don't remember the names. I'm not going to say kids' names in this, but they climb through this hole, and they're walking around in what they call the swamps, and they start seeing movement in the treetops at first, and then what they start to see is these little like fucking, this big gnomes coming out of the bushes, and they start to notice that they have there's a little discrepancy, but they're wearing like patchy clothes and have long beards and big stupid hats, and they're driving bubble cars.
Bubble cars, you say?
2-seater bubble cars, and I'll show you what that looks like in a few.
Okay.
2-seater. Each kid who was interviewed after this says there was exactly 30 bubble cars, 2-seaters. That's 60 gnomes. They start chasing them out of the swamps. One of the kids falls in the mud, completely like covered in mud, gets out. They run out of that hole into the main park area. They meet up with, the 4 or 5 other kids that they were with. They're telling them like, oh, these gnomes. These younger kids, they're like, no fucking way. Gnomes start popping out of the hole in their bubble cars, just jumping right over it, jumping over logs, starts chasing all these kids all the way out to the gate of the park. They're trying to get out through the gate. It's locked or it's jammed or something. Some of them are scrambling over it and pushing it from the outside. And then all the kids get out, but the gnomes kind of like hover around it. They won't go outside of the park into the street light. So this all happens. They run home. They all tell their parents. None of their parents believe it because obviously it's stupid.
Yeah.
But then they go to school the next day and they start telling all their classmates. All the classmates are like, oh, crap. Yeah. Some of them are like, yeah, I've seen gnomes too. The headmaster hears about this. And he's like, well, I don't think these kids are like pretty straight and narrow. He knows all these kids.
Yeah.
They're not the type to do that. So he decides to interview them. He interviews each one. They record it. There's transcripts. The newspaper starts hearing about this. All of their stories are more or less the same of these gnomes that just, they rushed them.
Yeah.
Down to the little details. Each kid said exactly 30 cards, little 2-seaters, 60 gnomes coming after him. One of them chased him, fell in the puddle. It gets brought up in the newspapers. The newspapers cover this. Like, it's serious business back then. And
they put time and effort into interviewing these kids, like spent resources.
Yeah, we have the transcripts are available, so you can go through it and read all of their accounts. They're all fairly accurate. One kid says that the beards are black, while all the other ones say they had white beards. I think that's like one of the only discrepancies you can find in it.
Maybe he saw one of the young ones, and
Maybe
the rest didn't.
the the thing about this is like these kids stuck to their story the entire time. People tried to poke holes in it. Other people with gnome and fairy encounters started coming forward. Now, I'm telling this stupid story because it sounds really familiar, right?
It sure, yeah.
It sounds exactly like aerial school.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
In my opinion too. I mean, that's pretty parallel.
Right. So, like, obviously, when I hear a story like this, I think those fucking kids are lying.
Yeah.
They're making
they're being kids. Yeah.
I've had a kid. She lies all the time.
Yeah.
She lies to me all the time. So, however, I would really like to see people who, especially people who think aerial is a strong case, who like buy into that. I want to see what they think about this story, because the parallels I think are pretty striking. And I want to know if it's just their personal like desire for the alien narrative to be true that makes them believe aerial over maybe like a gnome story like this, or maybe they just haven't heard it and they're like totally into these gnomes.
Yeah, maybe this is like, maybe they would put this up there with like a valet type theory, like, oh, this is in line with that. This makes sense to me. Or
Right.
maybe they'll be like, fucking gnomes don't exist, right? Two-seater cars. Does that make any sense? Where the gnome's going to put their gnome groceries?
I don't know. The bubble cars were apparently silent too, so they were electric cars. So we apparently Tesla is probably reverse engineering this technology. This is what they looked like.
Advanced AI cars, maybe.
Now see the front thing there, that's a steering wheel that their beard kind of hovers over.
Okay.
You know, this is like side view 2D, so you can't see the other gnome who's like perfectly lined up with them.
Yeah.
Or the kid sucks at drawing, but like,
yeah.
You know,
or he takes up 2 seats.
Pretty spooky. I should have warned everybody to put the kids in bed before I showed this. This is kind of a.
Now that's a beard, not a tongue.
It is a beard according to the. Oops, sorry. It's a beard according to the eyewitness testimony, which we should not dismiss.
So if that weren't a beard, I would probably assume they met a time traveling Joe Murgia, is what I would have thought, but maybe not.
From Joe Murgia.
Yeah. Shout out.
It's interesting. He colored this beard in. So maybe this is the one kid. This is the kid who fell down in the mud. He's the one who said he saw black beards. But, you know, maybe during his interview, he said that one of them fell on top of him. So maybe his beard just got muddy.
Maybe. That could be. I mean, when people talk about the aerial school phenomena, they talk about all the similarities between all the drawings and the reports. But I've talked about it before in other private conversations. It wasn't really that similar. If you go and look at all the different drawings, there's a wide discrepancy between the reports of the kids.
Yeah. What was the woman who came from MUFON first before John Mack showed up?
I don't recall. I don't remember.
She wrote the book. She wrote the book UFOs Over Africa. You know what I'm talking about.
I don't know who you're talking
Mainly,
about. I don't remember her name. I don't memorize.
I don't remember her name either, but I know that she.
I smoke too much to memorize names.
we're in the same boat. Now I heard she did quite a bit of cherry picking to find the more like classic saucer style alien style.
Yeah, as did John Mack in his reporting. And I mean, it's very hard to discuss John Mack, as you know, because he's got that hero status. Same with Bud Hopkins. It's very testy on what you can and can't say about them, and what you can and can't say about regressive hypnosis or hypnosis in general as it relates to the UFO phenomenon and abduction experiencer.
Do we still do regression hypnosis nowadays? Is that something that happens?
I don't know. I mean, people still defend David Jacobs' actions, so I'm assuming that some people still believe this is a thing. Yeah. I know Barbara Lamb was big into it for a long time, and she's still around, I think.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it the kind of like the main issue of the satanic panic, the kind of like catalyst of the satanic panic? It is.
And the problem is, in today's QAnon age, the satanic panic kind of has returned under the another kind of bandwagon or aspect of that. I don't even want to mention it on here because I think it gets everyone demonetized, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah,
sure. Maybe it's the Collins elite, right?
Yeah,
that's my spooky story that you promised would blow everyone's minds. I thought it was really funny. I was watching a video about it a little while ago, and I just some of the parallels to aerial kind of struck me. I don't think Huntington thinks it's similar. Not similar. Some descriptions of craft and aliens. We're from sci-fi culture. That's true. One of the aerial school drawings was like a near perfect match of one of the. It was a UFO model, I think a tester's model of the time that was based on one of the TV shows. Huntington would know it. He'll probably chime in with it. But I've seen the box for the tester's model. It's like a hobby kit model with the kind of hatches that fold down on the bottom so its landing gear come out. It's like a dead-on drawing of that.
Sweet
thing
gear.
about kids' drawings, and I've like my mom taught art classes that I joined a few times. I did art in school. Michael Huntington knows about the UFO model. One of the exercises we all do, and maybe you did this in school too, is drawing from an image or a portrait upside down.
Yes.
Do that. It's because we all have that tendency to like, this is a face. I know what a face looks like. So you kind of start drawing what you know a face looks like instead of drawing what you're seeing. And I think that influenced a lot of those images too. Because if you listen to the interviews with those kids, they didn't see a craft, or at least the majority of them didn't. They saw some shimmering behind the trees, but that's about it. But if you look at all the drawings, they have like actual crafts with like portholes and windows and stuff like that coming off of it. So these kids are like, know full well they're fully on the UFO story at that point. So they're drawing UFOs and what they think UFOs are. And I know another point that some people at least used to make about that case is these children in Rua don't have access to like TV and movies.
They don't have access to American culture,
which is completely untrue.
Yeah,
it almost sounds racist to me, but
people forget that South Africa is very white too. Like,
it sure is.
It's very colonized.
So that's my spooky gnome story.
Dude, that blew my mind. So if anybody else's mind wasn't blown, that's their problem.
If they're not paying attention, they're not awake.
That's right. That's right.
So what do you got? What are you bringing to the table?
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the beginnings of ufology. Anytime I have a chance to do any other podcast, which is not very often, to talk about ufology stuff, I always like to bring up the what I feel is the genesis of modern contactee stuff, the roots of modern contactee movement. And if you go back, some of the first modern contactee movement stuff was from San Diego. There was a man named Meade Lane.
Yes.
And Meade Lane put out publications called The Round Robin. He also founded the Borderland Research Sciences Association. He was really famous at the time for being a big follower of Charles Fort.
Yeah.
And stuff of the like. He worked close with Puharich as well. Andrea, aka Henry Puharich, who was a big influence on Pudov. So all this ties back directly, specifically to this. So Meade Lane was an interesting man. He was very interested in stuff like Edgar Cayce. That was a big influence on him. Helena Blavatsky.
Yep.
And he was interested in proving like the psychic phenomenon and channeling. Channeling was really big at the time.
Yeah.
And one of the first people who was sent to him was a man named Meade Lane. And like Cayce, he was sleeping, and his wife next to him would hear him muttering words that didn't seem to make sense. And she concluded that he was obviously channeling spirits in the night, but he didn't know. So she convinced him that this is what's going on.
I scream in my sleep a lot, so I wonder if I'm channeling.
You're probably channeling angry spirits, is what you're channeling.
Hey, what time frame is this?
So this is going to be, let's see, 1945. Meade Lane starts publishing the Round Robin. I believe it was October of 1946 where he first received a phone call from Probert.
So like pre-Kenneth Arnold sighting and popularizing of the saucer, and about 100 years after kind of the spiritualist movement kicks off in America.
Exactly.
Kind of place. Okay, cool.
It's like the depth of the spirit. It's after the death almost of the spiritualist movement and into the ufology, like the right at the base of ufology. This is 1 year before Kenneth Arnold. And Probert apparently when he was in San Diego thought he saw a meteor shower, and he said he was on the top floor of a building when he sighted it. And he saw a luminous craft appear in this meteor shower. About the size of an extremely large plane with two reddish lights moving very fast. the flapping of its wings was visible.
Interesting.
Yeah, so this craft had wings that were flapping like a bird.
Mm-hmm. It
And
wasn't a bird. Right?
no, it wasn't a bird though. No,
Not a thunderbird?
Maybe it was large, extremely large plane. He called it a plane. But yeah, it was about 8 months before Kenneth Arnold, and that's what got him to hit up Mead Lane. So Mead Lane talks to him and determines you're not just channeling beings, you're channeling fucking ascended masters. And
Okay.
Mead Lane would transcribe Mark Probert's what is that, glossolalia?
Glossolalia, yeah. Speaking in tongues.
Yeah, he would transcribe the glossolalia, and that's how we started learning that Mark Probert was talking to people from other dimensions, dimensional beings. And we have the creation of the dimensional being theories that are so popular today with Vallée theorists and people that are big subscribers to the Vallée theory. So what that always brings me back to, and this is my number one question in ufology, like when I went from true believer to someone who isn't as much a true believer, started questioning things a lot more, is how did this start? How did the contactee movement start as a hoax? And how did we end up to where it's real according to true believers? At what point did it go from a proven hoax to real deal interactions with CE5 type interactions with beings?
That's interesting too, because you can kind of take apart the Kenneth Arnold story and do the same thing with the press running with the flying saucer description, based on his description of the movement, and then people start seeing discs.
Yeah,
I think you give people easy answers to something under the cloak of something spooky, and under something that sounds like science, and it's something that sounds like religion, and it kind of just fills that void when there is no real authority to respond to that, to give them these answers, like big answers, like unfathomable things, right? Like things beyond death, things out of space, like that. We fill these with personified kind of figments, and we look to those. So I think maybe that, channeling and stuff like that was big all through the spiritualist movement too, right? Sure. It started out from the beginning with the Fox sisters, and I think that was 49, right?
Yeah.
But then quickly moved into like mediums and stuff, and then parapsychologists testing mediums.
You had Edison jumping in with his machines too, trying to call the dead. Yeah, call the dead. Why not?
Was there any like technological advances happening in this time? Because I see that those kind of line up with big movements in the fringe or Forteana. So like the Fox sisters coming out in the very late 40s, that was just on the heels of the telegram becoming popular. Yeah. And you'll notice that the Fox sisters communicated with Mr. Splitfoot through Knox in Morse code. And now Morse code is how you're talking through telegrams, right?
It's interesting.
This is kind of a new technology that, to the layman or the average consumer is essentially magical communication across great distances. It kind of fit hand in hand. Now at that time, scientists were really still considering the ether as a concept.
Oh yeah.
Which, I feel like people still kind of do now. Like what is Magonia if not the ether? What is to some people consciousness is more of like an ether space.
Akashic records located in the ether.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So kind of a mystical, and it's because of all these things being invisible and new and misunderstood. That's why I see like people explaining UFOs as like interdimensional, consciousness things. They'll often appeal to quantum physics. These are all bleeding edge science, but it's in the popular sphere. You pick up Pop Science magazine, or you see on blogs, you see all these like highly theoretical, not necessarily applicable concepts. But that's what people talk about because they're interesting and they sound like Star Trek. But the average person doesn't have the physics courses that led up to that to kind of understand the building blocks that get you there, and to even understand whether it's applicable or just like super theoretical. So these things can kind of lie there in our ignorance and still exist there. They're constantly looking for room. you were talking about the contactees. I think I've brought this up before, that originally they were coming from like Mars and Venus, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And as kind of we gathered more knowledge about the solar system, they started coming from further out and further
Yes.
out, different galaxies, the Pleiades, and now finally interdimensional.
Well, yeah, because the biggest argument against the planetary theory was time and space and being able to travel that large distance of time. Is it rational? Well, it can if you can bend space and time. It
Right.
can if it's another dimension.
Sure.
You know? And
Right.
it's a great answer.
That's what people talk about. That's what Eric Davis talks about, right? In the videos I've seen of him talking. Talks about kind of like highly conceptual Star Trek concepts.
Yeah, I mean, the dirts that they talk about, the dirts he constantly references that were paid for during OSAP with the $20 million or what have you. A lot of them, I mean, they were all based on theoretical concepts of where we might be 50 or 40 or 50 years from now,
Right.
I think it was.
Yeah.
And like his was about wormholes and warp drives and all kinds of stuff. And it sounds all great and dandy, except for the fact that they miss out on the fact that it was based on theoretical concepts, not
Right.
on materials recovered from crafts that we are fucking, taking apart with Bob Lazar's help. As a matter of fact, I was listening to a podcast tonight, and it was aired today, a few hours ago, in fact. And it was, I can't remember the guy's name, but it was on Concrete Podcast, Concrete with a K. Yeah. Usually they're really good. They have high quality stuff on there. They have interesting individuals, but it's real high quality. They had this guy on there talking, and I forgot where I was going with this, but it was an intel guy with the CIA.
Sure.
And he was talking about Bob Lazar, and he was bringing up the host was bringing up Bob Lazar as if it were fact, and he was literally repeating all the talking points from the Joe Rogan podcast with Bob Lazar about why he for sure had his work record scrubbed over at Los Alamos. He for sure had his education record scrubbed. He for sure this and that.
Yeah,
and
that proves it.
And this is a podcast where it seems like he tries to keep everything very realistic. So now we have a podcast that doesn't usually cover like UFO phenomenon and weird, spooky stuff, talking about Lazar being fact, arguing the facts of Lazar.
Now, do you think that like, not that the podcast was, but like media outlets now are feeling a little more comfortable with talking about this stuff based on kind of like the passerby general zeitgeist knowledge of UFOs now since that December 2017 article came out that kind of misrepresented what was going on, in my opinion, but just, lazy puff pieces from local media and even national media are picking that up and just rolling with it because like, hey, you see a lot of believers talking about how the stigma at least was lessening, right? And is this what they mean then?
I think so.
They're not playing the X-Files theme on the news anymore when they show UFOs. Is that like what we were moving towards?
I think so. I mean, I don't know what they really wanted out of all this. I never felt stigma, but I never really gave a shit what anyone thinks. So that's my problem. Like, I don't have that in the first, like I'm missing part of my brain or something or it's damaged where that goes. But like, I never understood that because I didn't really ever have a stigma in the first place. Like, I get that some people thought it was kooky, but I thought I did enough research to where I don't really give a shit what they think. But looking back, I was just as goofy as everyone thought.
I'm kind of torn on it because like, while a lot of people will point to the media and like the kind of like the high concentration of shows that were coming out between say like now and then.
Yeah.
Man, growing up in like the 80s and the 90s, watching Sightings, Unsolved Mysteries, all those specials, the Alien Autopsy that aired on primetime on Fox.
Yeah.
This stuff has been on TV and been like kind of like culturally acceptable from my perspective my whole life.
Same.
Now, I'll say that. On the other hand, though, you guys, I think a lot of people here are familiar with the Lake Michigan 94 case that I've been working on for a long time. The radar operator in that case, the one you can hear on the tape, Jack Bouchon, he did get kind of a reputation for the guy who saw the UFO. And I don't remember how long it was after that incident, but he got transferred out to Georgia to do weather stuff out there. And that reputation did follow him out there. And he did kind of have that like, hey, this guy's kind of a wacko.
Yeah.
This guy saw flying saucers. So in that respect, and that is a professional aspect, it does exist. It's there. I'm not going to deny it, but I don't know. I like was he negative negatively affected? Like, did he not get promotions because of that? That I can't speak to.
Yeah.
But I don't
I
know.
mean, it did wonders for Knapp, right? Like, I
Good.
mean, you could argue against it, but everybody knows his name. I mean, not I shouldn't say everybody. Everybody in the UFO sphere knows his name. I don't know if everybody in the world has a clue who George Knapp is, but he does have a career doing this where he can make money at conferences and pushes Lazar's story and push back every time someone pushes against it. By the way, speaking of a current topic, did you see him pushing back against Taylor publicly?
Yeah, Travis Taylor, who said Bigelow sold the ranch because it had something to do with his wife dying. Although
Yeah, that was the quote. Yeah.
he was off by what, like 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, but he also Travis Taylor during the interview also said Bob Lazar was just a janitor, and I don't know if I mean in my opinion I don't know if Knapp was mad because he was trying to defend his good friend Bob Bigelow, or if
Mm-hmm.
Knapp was mad that Taylor had the nerve to come speak against the king that represents Lazar. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
a monetary chain for George Knapp. Is not just monetary fame, reputation, all of it's tied into it. You
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. I thought it was interesting. Yeah, Taylor's been saying quite a lot lately. I suppose that is kind of the current news, although it's a little underwhelming. There was that, and then his comments about, or at least alluding to certain members of the skeptical community, or not even. I wouldn't consider John Greenwald part of the skeptical community,
I
but
wouldn't either.
being paid shills, and it just makes me think like how like aren't you confident enough in your beliefs to have people who have a different opinion without calling them like paid liars?
Yeah.
You know
But
what I mean? Like I think that's really it's really weak.
as an intel guy, because we know he was Army intel, he's talked about it before.
Mm-hmm.
Probably counter intel, I would assume, based on how he was pushed on the Skinwalker Ranch TV show. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Well,
And I always assumed he was a part of Knapp and Lakatsky's crew more so than Lou and their crew or the Skinwalker Ranch crew. I always assumed he was part of Lakatsky's, but this shows that if him and Knapp aren't tight, then maybe he isn't as tightly involved with that crowd.
I don't know, man.
But as
don't
an
know.
intel guy, they spit counterintelligence. That's what they do. They try to deflect and redirect and spin with lies. I don't know why anybody thinks that a skeptical podcast would make money. Like people get paid by who are these people that pay skeptics to like we're gonna get the alien people like
Susan Goff.
Susan Goff. She
That's
probably is
who
loaded
signs
with
my
money.
checks
Yeah.
bi-weekly.
Yeah, she probably has good money to pay skeptics. I'm sure that's a thing.
It's worth it in the long run
Yeah,
because otherwise people would believe in UFOs.
but I wonder if they pay more for skeptics or if they pay more to people like Greer to push his alien agenda because they're paying him too, according to them.
Like just shitty narrative alien agendas and like bad stories. Yeah, that could be. It's curious though because he's kind of like more. I'm not too familiar with Greer, but he's more like consciousness and meditation through aliens and stuff like that, right? Kind of more woo-y.
So when he first came out, he was very, very meditation oriented, but with the Disclosure Project stuff, he put on this suit of only being about the evidence, the data, the military witnesses, the serious congressional witnesses. So for a long time, he had this air of only serious witnesses. I'm only going to represent that. But as he brought out his witnesses, people saw the level of credibility a lot of these witnesses had and laughed.
Sure. Yeah.
And shortly after that, I mean, it went into the whole meditation hippie. We can talk to aliens with our brains. We don't need them. They need us type thing.
Eventide said something. It's all about stirring up doubt and confusion, promote the most extreme people on both sides of the debate. And like, there is something to be said about the obfuscation about that, but there's also something to say about like the leaving the door open for a chance, like ambiguous kind of answers. And that's actually how shows like our old favorites like Ghost Hunters and Ghost Avengers and like Skinwalker operate on that. They take their broken technology and they get these ambiguous bits of evidence. Not that they provide any kind of like causal link between these things, but it's enough to end the show each week or whatever it's on saying, oh, but what if this is weird? So what if? And this shit just kind of rides that perpetually.
As a believer, I know that early on, my expertise was not in science. It wasn't in physics. It wasn't in quantum physics. But I had a deep intrigue into understanding it, and I want to understand it. And because I had that intrigue and a want, when these shows would reference these things, I would almost understand it just enough to kind of maybe get the theory that they were pushing at. But the way they sold it so confidently, it made it seem like, oh, of course, electromagnetic detectors will tell us if there are ghosts here.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
Of course it will. It's
Well,
energy.
They're selling you like they're selling you magic with a scientific vocabulary attached to it. Energy is like probably the perfect example. That word can mean anything.
It cannot be it cannot be created or destroyed. So our souls can't die because it's energy, and that's the connection.
But what kind of energy are you talking? See, that's what they're talking like.
Orgone.
So, yeah. Well, that's a flashback. So yeah, energy can't be created or destroyed. So they're talking about scientific energy in that sense, but then they kind of substitute it for like the soul or life force or chi or prana and stuff like that. And like colloquially, that's fine to call that energy. Like I don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. But interchanging them while you're talking about it is really interesting to me. Huntington says quantum. Yeah, quantum mysticism is like kind of the big one. Well, it's moving into conscious mysticism now, but quantum mysticism was a big one. That kind of started in wasn't it like the late 80s with Deepak Chopra?
Yeah.
He the guy who kind of started talking about like he would do like mumbo jumbo nonsense sentences and throw quantum in there, and it was
part of the Oprah book club.
Oh, that was it. It's Oprah's fault.
I blame Oprah. She pushed him hard. The moms loved him.
That's interesting. I saw a comment a little while back. I'm gonna see if I can find it and pop it up because it had to do with something we were talking about right before we got in here. I can't find it. Whatever.
We also have the whole term that I think like it would be cool to define on show one, because I know this is going to be lumped in with a skeptic podcast type show. I know it because they always call us skeptics, both of us. They call our groups of friends skeptics or debunkers or what have you. So I think it's important that we define that term here today, how we would use it, how we would define it for ourselves, how we would define our own belief system. So if you want to run away with that, feel free.
Sure. So I've told a lot of people this, but long time ago, I was full on believer, grew up watching sightings and X-Files and Unsolved Mysteries and stuff. Full on, but then, you hit middle school, high school and stuff, and you forget about UFOs for a little while. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. When I came back, I got really into parapsychology and the ghost hunting stuff. TAPS was on TV, and I was like, oh, these seem like real salt of the earth dudes. They wouldn't be lying. It's what sells.
Plumbers, bro. They don't fucking lie.
Right. So I get kind of into that, and when you start entering that community, of course, they all talk about the foils, the skeptics, the debunkers. Or Stanton Friedman called them RIP, nasty, noisy negativists.
Yeah, noisy negativists.
Yeah, so that was kind of the impression that I got from them. They were literally there to shit on a parade.
Yeah.
But one of the first things that pushed me over, and this is funny, is that it was TAPS. It was one of their Halloween live specials where they were just blatantly faking. And I was like, all right, if these dudes are lying to me, who else is lying? What else is bullshit? And I started diving deeper, and I got into kind of like the skeptical community after that. And I found out there's other people that are like, no, this is bullshit. People are taking advantage of people. People are swindling people, just completely hoaxing them. And I got really into that. But all the while I was doing that, I was becoming more and more cynical, where I would not entertain any ideas. And a cynic is what I think a lot of the people that criticize us are meaning when they say either debunker or a new one. And I was looking for it in the comments. Someone said pseudo-skeptic.
Yes,
and I
love it.
My impression is that's what they mean. A pseudo-skeptic is just a cynic. Okay. And that's where I was at. And I, for a few years there, I made a skeptical publication online called The Bent Spoon. I I think you can find that on the
You can find it in the AFU.
Yeah, it's in there. Don't look for it. It's embarrassing.
Please look for it. It's called the Bent Spoon.
Yeah, but anyway, I read a Joe Nickell article at my peak, at my cynics, my pseudo skeptic zenith.
Yeah.
And it was about the incident at Exeter, and it was him and a friend, and he said that it was really the word he used. He said solved. Yeah. I was like, solved is a strong word. And I read that article, and his suggestion was that it was a KC-97 Stratotanker flying over the field, refueling another plane. And the lights they saw at that 45-degree angle were the direction lights on the back of the tanker to line up with the zoom or the boom for fuel, right? And there were red lights on. And I thought, first of all, I think you'll notice everything else that's going on, and it would be rather loud, especially given the
you think so?
Yeah. And then I Skeptical Inquirer magazine is a black and white magazine.
Yeah.
I went to go look at that article on their website where they had full color photos, and all the directional lights on the bottom fuselage of KC-97 Stratotankers, they're multicolored. You know, so like reverse is red, but forward's blue, and then like left and right are green. Mm-hmm. So that didn't fly either. And I was like, you know what? This dude's got to a point where he'll just throw anything out. And I was just like, this is exactly what I'm doing. And I walked away from UFOs and paranormal ghosts, all that crap for like, I want to say like 5 or 6 years. Just didn't want to think about it. I was like, I burned myself out. I self-reflected, like, I'm not doing this in like a good or productive way either. I'm just being an asshole. I'm trying to dunk on people. Mm-hmm. So I walked away. And then it was till the pandemic, 2020. I was talking to an old buddy that I had kind of reconnected with from like way back, from like 1989. And he's like, hey man, you still into UFOs and stuff like that? And I was like, I haven't thought about them in a long time. I had all that like old case knowledge rattling around my head, like the Wiener twins and Allagash being abducted. Mm-hmm. We talked about this, like a couple of the bigger cases. I was really into the abduction phenomenon back when I was a true believer. Yeah. But anyway, he's like, we should start up a podcast. We should do one where we like talk about UFOs and weird stuff, kind of like what we are doing now.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, cool, let's do this. And then he kind of just bailed on it a little bit. I didn't like, he had a lot of stuff going on, so he couldn't do it. So I was like, I'll just make one. There's no UFO podcasts really. This will be sweet. And then I came to UFO Twitter and found out there's a billion of them. So like, I'm not going to do that. But I decided to like just pick a couple cases and then just look at them like from a clean slate. And one of the first ones I picked was Lake Michigan 94. Mm-hmm. I had a vague recollection of it. I think I had seen something on a special, and it's really local to me. It's like 25 minutes away from me. So it's like, I'm gonna dig into this. Like the 90s were cool. It's right by my house, basically. I'm gonna dig into this. And I said to myself, I was like, I'm still a skeptic from my definition, my perspective. I'm still a skeptic, but I want to go into this open. I'm open to these claims. And I'm not going to make any judgment until I can make a conclusive statement about anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and like, we all have biases and stuff. These cloud our judgment. These control kind of our judgment, our internal biases. So I'm aware of those. So when I look at these cases, I'm reserving my judgment. That's what I try to say to people. I'm open to whatever, but I'm going to reserve my judgment to believe it or not. And that seems to rile people up. People think I'm as that patriot we know King Milkfart said. I'm just asking questions, tee-hee phase. But I don't. Mm-hmm. I see how it comes off as that, but I don't think that's what it is. I am just not going to come to a final conclusive decision without all of the evidence. And if that evidence, doesn't hold up, if he can't be corroborated, I'm not gonna say that I believe in any of these things.
Yeah.
I don't have a firm belief in any of this stuff. I do think that case that I started with is probably one of the more mysterious ones still, after having looked at it for like 2 years straight and actually talking to a bunch of the witnesses, doing some corroboration with like the 911 recordings, the maps, the notes that other investigators have kind of left behind and forgotten. it's still mysterious to me. I don't think anything about that is indicative of aliens or anything like that. They're just describing lights, but I think it's still mysterious, and that's what I appreciate about all these cases across all these fringe topics, is the mystery about them, and whether they turn out to be hoaxes or something mundane or like illusions or someone just being bonkers or something truly novel or weird. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
I'm looking for it all. So that's what a skeptic is to me, someone who reserves their judgment until there's enough solid evidence to make a conclusive statement.
Yeah.
And that's it. I don't have, I mean, every person has a bias or a series of biases, but that's not how I'm going into things, despite what I think people's impressions are. So what about you? How would you define it?
So I define it, it really depends on what year you ask me. Like my current definition now is way different than it was even 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
So when I use the word skeptic, when I was a very much a deep, true believer,
Mm-hmm.
by that point, I'd still been into this since I was a little kid, real little, as a little boy. I've never stopped being into this. I felt that a skeptic was someone who didn't do the research, hasn't looked at any. That's killing me. It's a little mini Puffco, is what it is. But that don't do the research, don't know the cases, but they're looking at it from their scientific perspective and applying data set or their knowledge to data sets that they don't quite understand, and they don't understand the history of ufology, etc. So those to me were skeptics,
Mm-hmm.
people that were cynical because they hadn't seen what I had seen.
Mm-hmm.
That's in my brain. That's what it was. You haven't seen what I've seen.
That's basically was Stanton Friedman's argument all these times. I got into a couple of arguments with him back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, just you're not looking at the evidence, and
Yes.
it's what evidence? And he'd say Project Blue Book Special Report 14, and I said, that's pretty inconclusive. And even when you have your best case scenario, an unknown, you're still making an argument from ignorance by claiming to identify any of those things.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, like, there is that, but like honestly, we don't know. We don't have anything conclusive either way on a lot of these mysterious cases. So I mean,
but during that time,
yeah.
I had the conclusive evidence.
Yeah.
I had Lazar's testimony.
Mm-hmm.
I had Billy Meyer's pictures.
Those are nice pictures.
They're beautiful pictures. But
I love these pictures.
I had testimony. I mean, James Woolsey's talked on it.
Mm-hmm.
The dude from Skunk Works has talked on it. I could keep going, keep rolling.
Yeah.
And
right?
skeptics just don't know because they haven't looked and they haven't spent as many hours, as many years as I have researching. The way I define it now, and there's a big difference. After I stopped being a super hardcore true believer, when I started being real skeptical about stuff,
mm-hmm.
I had a real problem with listening to Mick West.
I did at first too.
I did, and it was natural because I like, whether it was Shermer, Neil deGrasse Tyson, whoever it was, if they disagreed with the alien hypothesis, they were on my shit list. Mm-hmm. So inherently, I had this feeling like I just don't like this guy. Like he doesn't have a right to say that this isn't true because he hasn't put the years in that I've put into researching it to say it's not true.
Yeah.
But we come to the same conclusion regardless. So does it really fucking matter in the end? That's kind of where I ended up with it. Like we've come to the same conclusion. Whether he has put in years and years and years of diving into the research, does it fucking matter if this conclusion's the same?
If you go back like over a year ago when I was interacting with Mick West, I was calling him a performative know-it-all. Like, because I was like, what is the point of what you're doing? Yeah. Like, and it was completely an emotional reaction because I was like back on that UFO hype train a little bit. And I was like, oh man, I'm more open to this now. I started smoking weed. I can accept all this shit. And I've fallen back to where I started, more or less, needing a little bit better evidence. But yeah, dude, I was a total prick to him all the time. And it was just an emotional reaction to him, like just shitting in my cereal about all the cases that I liked. And I like the case I bring up now, Lake Michigan, if he swooped in, he's like, oh dude, come on, that's this and this and this, and that's how this could look like it. I would be bummed. I talked about this with Lou Jimenez before.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of like bummed feeling you get when like one of your cases just gets torn
Yes.
apart and it turns out to be bullshit. But that's good, and that shows you where your biases are. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're aware of them moving forward, then you have more control over them. Because what was that old quote? We're all trying to solve what UFOs are. We're all trying to
Yeah.
identify UFOs. So identifying them, even if they turn out to be misidentifications or hoax, they're identified. That noise is removed and the signal is finer tuned. You know what I mean?
That's how I feel about modern ufology as a whole.
Yeah.
When people refer to ufology, whether it's uh, Luis Elizondo talking about destroying ufology,
Mm-hmm.
I think that ufology now, aka what most people consider ufology, is UFO Twitter, that little tiny social sphere.
Yeah.
But I think that it's not about the cases. It's not about the phenomenon or the lights in the sky or
Sure.
what have you, or is it aliens? It's about characters telling stories, humans telling stories and trying to convince you of something. And I in one sense, I agree that part of ufology I wish would die because that's what muddies everything, the human aspects. But what is ufology more than a human aspect? What is it more than a bunch of common stories from or uncommon stories from people
Yeah.
without physical evidence? I mean,
Sure.
really, that's what ufology is.
I mean, like all of human culture has those stories, and we make up explanations for them before, like thunder is God bowling, right?
Yeah.
So, but what the hell does UFO Twitter have to do with ufology?
Very little. I mean, I didn't even know about UFO Twitter until maybe 2 years ago. I never even messed with Twitter just because I didn't
Yeah,
like it.
yeah.
And
Still
I was
don't.
originally going to start a podcast with one of my mentor type people. His name was
Mhm.
Einhorn.
Yep.
And the only reason I went on UFO Twitter was to hunt him down because he disappeared.
Yep. Not Valet's friend Einhorn though. Different Einhorn. Einhorn
Different, yeah, not Ira Einhorn, the person that used the screen name Einhorn.
Right.
But yeah, but I didn't find him, but what I found was a lot of shitheads on UFO Twitter. A lot of people, I shouldn't say shitheads, people that
You can say shitheads.
I can't say shitheads. Sure, there are some shitheads. There are a lot of people with a lot of differing beliefs, and there are certain people that you cannot talk about.
Like who?
I'd say, I mean, if you're going to have any questions for anyone, especially nowadays, Pasolka, Nolan,
Mm-hmm.
you do not ask anything of those people. They are the salt of the earth.
Yeah. Nolan blocked me pretty quick. I called Pasolka a boomer for posting a boomer meme, and that didn't make her mad. So
yeah, I some reason I got blocked, and I've never spoken to her or talked about her publicly. So at that point, so
you got a bad rep, man. She's talking to Chris Wolford. He called you dude. So
he's like his wife's a motherfucker, and he's weird.
Yeah, she probably caught wind of that and was like, "No thanks. I don't want any of this negativity."
Speaking of UFO negativity, let's talk about one of the pink elephants in the room, as it were. Supposedly, there is a man named Moron Spermer, and he's going to be letting out some kind of something declaration. He says
20 plus page declaration, right?
Yeah, and he says he's working with a team of 200 people to infiltrate the cults of UFO Twitter. So we're waiting for this declaration. We're all really, really excited to hear about it. So when Spermer gets to it, it might be big news.
I think that's this weekend. I think that will be exactly 2 weeks since his most recent claim that it will be 2 weeks from now. Because he's been saying 2 weeks and soon for like a month and a half or maybe 2 months. So
I just can't.
But the most recent update I got is that Leah's asking when it's going to drop. I'm thinking, well, it's 2 weeks from that space, which I think was on a Sunday. So it's going to be this Sunday.
I think another person made a proclamation about there being a big event and all of it will be disclosed, and I'll know that I was wrong and all the skeptics are going to eat their own words. But that was a few months ago, and I'm still waiting on that one.
Yeah.
My words.
Well, when these when these prophecies come and pass, it's usually it's usually then explained as kind of like a spiritual reckoning took place. So he like owned us all 30 or 40 people that all cooperatively support that article that we all wrote,
Yes.
exposing his bullshit.
Yeah.
God, yeah, we've been working on that for like months too.
Months, dude. All I could think about was Moran Spermer, and I just it's a name that was on my mind.
So
No,
yeah,
I appreciate getting credit for stuff I had nothing to do with, and it sucks because it was great work. But I cannot take credit for it, but he does give us credit. But it's
in all seriousness, no. Bradley worked on that, not us. But
and I believe Mark was the co-author.
Mark was credited. There was a picture of a tweet of mine in Bradley's article, and I think that's kind of why he kind of showed his hand. He was trying to like gaslight us into thinking that he had some knowledge that he didn't quite have.
He's an alien. He better have some knowledge, bro.
That's true.
Aliens better have better knowledge than me, or they suck.
Rich has never heard of this guy before. That's awesome.
I mean, that makes sense.
But, hey, so our next episode, this document should go out, and I think we should just like take turns reading it.
Oh,
just
that'd
the
be
whole
sweet.
episode, we'll just read right through it, and
dude,
eat crow the whole time too while we're eating it. We'll take turns, mouthfuls.
Cry, eat a shoe, eat my foot. Yeah.
So there's that. What else is happening? Taylor mouthing off.
You got Nolan with his war on quote unquote skeptics again, which is one of the reasons I brought that up.
That's right. Yeah, fill me in on that. I'm not really up to date with what Nolan's saying.
I don't remember the direct quote, but it's been quite a bit of shield beating about skeptics being the enemy. A lot of talk like that. A lot of similar to what you hear from Lou Elizondo and the Cahill camp.
Right.
These people, these skeptics, are our enemy. They're the reason that disclosure is not going to happen because these important people are watching UFO Twitter, and you know what I mean? Like, you really think congressional people are going, "Oh, what the fucking UFO Twitter? See what the fucking dorks are saying." Nobody gives a shit what any of us are saying.
Well, but, what is it specifically that all these skeptics or pseudo skeptics or debunkers are saying that's actually throwing a wrench in it?
I'm not sure, but I think it's anything that is contrary to what those people are saying.
What are they saying?
That the alien truth is here. We've heard Lou Elizondo say disclosures already happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's a process, not an event. It's almost there. All of the above. We've
in that order.
I think so. Yeah, I do think it's been in that order a few times. So we've been there, done it, had it. It's process, not an event. Going to be there soon.
So it's kind of like a thing that's outside of time and space, right?
It's dimensional.
It's interdimensional itself. Disclosure comes from Magonia.
Skinwalker Ranch is where you can jump into a hole to Magonia.
Fucking sweet.
Yeah.
You're doing a raffle tonight?
Oh yes. Let me not forget. So I'm going to do a giveaway for everyone that's in my other podcast, The Breeder Syndicate, which is a cannabis strain history podcast. So it's not for everyone that's going to be into this, but anybody who's a part of that Patreon, they can go type in a key phrase over in the Breeder Syndicate Patreon Discord, and they will win a free pack of seeds. So whoever's the first to type, be sure to drink your Ovaltine, will win a free pack of seeds. There you go. That's it. That's it for the contest. Let's see who wins that. Exciting, I know. I hijacked A Christmas Story. But I figured it would be easiest so people could remember it,
Someone said it.
Yep, there it is.
It was
Thank
me,
you, sir.
It was me.
There we go. So yeah, that's
Did you get any of your did we get any cross contamination for your stuff in the chat? Some of these people I don't
some. Yeah.
This
I see some friends.
Never seen this person before.
I see some friends. Dog Days.
Cool.
AJ, yeah.
Huntington says it'll be legal in Missouri next year.
I'm sorry to hear. Because
gotta wait a year.
No, I'm sorry to hear that they're going to push corporatization over there, because it's not legalization. It's one of those terms that there's Tuffy, yeah. Scrutin. Legalization is not legalization. It is corporatization. Yesterday, California announced a few different things. They were going to get rid of people's convictions or be able to hide their convictions or whatever for drug convictions or cannabis convictions, whatnot. But if you look deep in that article, it says they will also be increasing prosecution of those who are not legal. Now, the term legal doesn't necessarily apply to what's going on. It's corporatization and regulation. So if you have the right, if you can afford the right licenses, you'll be in that crowd that is considered legal.
Right.
Or your 6 plants, what have you, that you could never do much with.
Yeah. That's kind of the impression I get as an outsider looking in on this. I've noticed that weed at the weed shops here in Michigan is pretty cheap. It's cheaper than my buy. So, that's nice for me as a consumer, I suppose. Probably not for you as a distributor of seeds.
No, yeah. So what happened this past few years? I noticed like a lot of people are going to notice that the prices of weed are going down considerably when they get it, or should be. And if they're not, you should probably smack whoever you're getting it from. Sure. But what happened was when the hemp bill was passed, hemp growers all got involved, and they literally overgrew the country the first year by so many pounds. It's ridiculous. Tons. Wow. Metric tons. Overgrew the country, made it worthless. So the next year, a lot of them said, well, I noticed the inspectors weren't coming and checking the hemp fields to see if we're growing THC. So they learned that when they were checking, they would go to the 4 quadrants of the corners to go check, but not on the inside. So 90% of their field would be THC, and the outer quadrants would all be CBD hemp. And that would only be what they would test. So what they did was they had all of this extra product that they couldn't necessarily dump in the legal market.
Yeah.
They could dump it in the black market, and all of them did it. And they killed the black market in one round. And with the overtaxing and overregulation in the legal market, the black market prices were so cheap that it impacted the legal market. Legal market, it makes it so expensive for people to even be able to qualify to get those certificates or what have you to be able to grow legally, that all the mom and pops that were pushing for legalization all these years, they're all out of business now, pushed out by the hemp market, the legal market. And it's the only time in the history of drugs that we know of that marijuana or drug price has completely crashed to be almost worthless.
It's a weird concept, especially coming from, the criminalized status that had been all over the country for so long, or that I was used to and grown up with, and the moralization of drug use too.
Yeah.
For my entire life.
Yeah, it's wild to see. It's a lot of good people that created the industry that are now suffering the most, and corporate assholes took over, which means and the way it works is in these big, huge mega grows that are the only ones going to be able to compete with each other to be able to sell at that low of a price.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get quality at all. And not just not quality, you're going to get bad quality repeatedly, contaminants, all kinds of horrible shit. Well, yeah. So whereas at the beginning, the consumer wins because the first 2 years, you're going to have all this excess stuff that's been stored semi-properly. It'll still be kind of good, and a wide variety of strains. And slowly you're going to see this bottleneck down to just horrible, like the most commercially profitable, large yielding, low potency stuff.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. It's how they bastardize every crop that we've ever, like, not just illegal narcotics. I mean, bananas, apples, every crop, tomatoes. That's how it goes.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
We made it an hour, Matt.
Not bad.
We're in. What are we doing with this show? How often is this happening? What can people expect to see?
I think we are going to try to hit it once a week.
I will hit it once a week.
Yeah, and like my interests are different from Nick's interests. My interests come from like a punk rock background, like serial killers, UFOs,
that shit too.
Ghosts, stuff like that. But I think we both are just hella interested. Like we're 80s kids that grew up watching Sightings, Unsolved Mysteries. Like that's my passion in life. So I think it's anything that kind of fits that realm,
Shit.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I love. That's what you love. I know we have plans for like doing a Patreon, and we're going to be doing some stoned alien history episodes.
Yeah, some commentary tracks.
Some commentary tracks to popular shows out there with people famous in ufology.
Yeah,
different stuff like that. I think it'll be fun, and maybe have some of our friends jump on.
Yeah, I want to do some like some call-in lines and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to the extent I was doing with the Spaces, my other group, but a little more hand-picked, right? A little more cultivated. But yeah, I think that like if it's classified as weird, it's not necessarily ghosts or UFOs, but just weird shit.
Yeah.
It's probably going to come up.
Next week, I want to do a little bit on Feliska, which is a really an old murder from, I think, the 1910s. It's been a while since I've looked at it, but
cool.
It's from Iowa, and it was an unsolved murder and maybe part of many murders.
Really?
Yeah.
Bring that on. Yeah, I think maybe we'll both bring a weird case at least one each time. We can tell it, especially if the other person's not familiar with it, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're familiar with my stupid gnome story. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like it.
I think that's the plan moving forward. I think we're going to do Tuesdays at 9 p.m., right?
Yep, that's a plan.
Sweet. Looks like a lot of people are into the serial killers and true crime aspect of it.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Which I know I got some good ones up my sleeve too.
Good.
So we'll bring those.
I'll show off my Manson painting, my original Charles Manson paintings and John Wayne Gacy drawings and all the creepy shit I own.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Have some smear episodes. I mean, I'm not opposed to talking some shit. So
oh yeah, no. Yeah.
We'll
I love talking shit.
But yeah, we'll bring some shit. It's going to be Tuesdays. It's going to be 9. Sometimes it'll be an hour. Sometimes we'll go longer too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's all I have tonight. Do you have anything else? Do you have anything to plug?
Check out my other podcast, Breeder Syndicate, where we cover cannabis strain history, cannabis politics, current cannabis shit. Yep. We talked to all the original historians and the guys who were there breeding the strains in the 60s, 70s, 80s, etc. Cool. That's really it.
Find me, invisiblenightschool.com is our blog. It's a consortium of researchers and academics and lay researchers. I'm the lay, and the dubious layman. We just put out an article today written by Louis Cayetano about consciousness and its role in the UFO and alien mythos. Definitely check that out. We did a space about that a couple days prior to, where we kind of delved into those concepts and stuff. And next week, Saturday, we're doing another one. And I think we're talking about ghosts and spiritualism, and kind of like, my plan is to kind of start with the Fox sisters and work our way up to modern day and like ghost adventures and ghost bros and all that kind of stuff.
So if people like this show, that would be a good primer, like to help get a good gauge on the paranormal subject. So if you're there, check out the Twitter space.
Yeah, it's gonna be some history and like kind of my thoughts of how like emergent technologies and stuff like that seem to kind of go hand in hand. Emergent technologies and emergent concepts in science seem to go hand in hand with the way the alien and ghost myths kind of take form. And yes, it is spooky season, which is why I kicked it off with that really fucking scary gnome story.
Dude, that was so scary. Now I'm going to be scared of little bubble cars everywhere, is what you fucked me up.
Where's that fucking pic? Oh, I got rid of it.
Where's the bubble car? One last time.
Whatever, man. But that's it, right? Are we good?
Yeah,
we're going to wrap it?
We're good.
All right, I'm going to kick this out, and I'm going to play that fucking cool intro again.
Yeah, I love that fucking intro.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Like and subscribe. We'll be here next Tuesday. See you later.